Anthony Oliveira é um condecorado autor, programador de cinema e crítico de cultura pop, com vários dos seus artigos a serem publicados por gigantes da média como The Washington Post, Hazlitt, entre vários outros, assim como o lançamento do seu livro intitulado Dayspring. A sua colaboração com a Marvel Comics tem trazido enorme notoriedade, ajudando a criar e evoluir personagens de Young Avengers, X-Men e Captain Marvel.
My biography is not really... I didn't write anything professionally creative until 2017, early 2018. I was an academic for most of my life. But my work was always kind of experimental and exploratory in its style. And then I got my PhD, and then I was on the job market doing interviews, buying the suit and getting the haircut and all that stuff. And just as like a side gig, I started writing a little bit of culture criticism about like TV shows and movies, and then some journalism. And I always knew I had this other project I wanted to do. It's called Dayspring, about the Gospels as told from the point of view of the beloved disciple. And I just wrote a short story version of it, and that got some attention and grew into a book, and so that's been developing. And meanwhile, I'm a huge nerd, so I was writing comic book stuff, and that took off, and Marvel took notice, and I started writing for them. Done some Young Avengers and X-Men and Captain Marvel. It just kind of snowballed, but it's always still informed by the academic work. My work is very kind of magpie. It loves, you'll notice even in the comics, like these characters tend to talk in weird Shakespearean quotes, and like John Milton tends to show up in alien speeches and stuff.
Anthony destaca o seu processo criativo quando trabalha com as suas personagens, sendo elas criadas do zero ou já existentes há décadas, destacando a necessidade de não temer a inovação e se sentir recluso às suas histórias e legados.
There's a way that writing Captain America is like writing Jesus, in that like there's a lot of baggage and there's a lot of conflicting stuff actually. And there's a lot of strong feelings about what this person is supposed to be like, and what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, and what they believe and what they don't believe, and what they stand for and don't stand for. At the end of the day is about being brave enough to say, this is what this character, this person, this entity means to me. And whenever it's a character that's someone else's first, that whether it's 2,000 years or 50 years or whatever, or 10 years or 5 years or 12 issues, like you inherit this thing and you owe a certain amount to the work done before. You have to honor that, but you also have to innovate it and say like, here's how it can matter again, I think.
Confessando ser um enorme nerd, Anthony destaca a importância dos desenhos animados e bandas desenhadas na sua vida, ajudando-o a encontrar a sua própria identidade e a escapar à realidade ao seu redor.
I grew up in a very conservative Portuguese house, and I learned like English from watching cartoons when I was a kid, like He-Man and G.I. Joe and Transformers. And then I remember really distinctly the morning when the X-Men cartoon debuted, and it was about all these heroes fighting these robots and all this stuff, but at its heart, it was about what it was like to be born different and have the whole world say that what you are is wrong, and know that that's not true, and fight for your existence and fight for your community and find community with each other. And I truly think like the X-Men saved me when I was a kid, because I needed something that said the world is wrong. What the world is saying about you is not true, and you don't have to believe it. And if you're willing to be brave, you'll find other people on your side.
É este mesmo sentimento que Anthony procura oferecer à sua audiência, criando personagens com quem se possam identificar e sentir uma conexão emocional.
In many ways, in my writing now, my ideal audience is like, what is the comic that I needed when I was a kid that I didn't have? What did I need to see? Where are the queer heroes? Where are the people standing up for the issues that matter now, for trans people, for racial justice in technology and in social movements? Like, what does the 10, 12, 8-year-old version of me who's alive in 2024 need to read?
Anthony destaca outra das suas iniciativas prediletas, o Dumpster Raccoon Cinema, onde, em conjunto com o Review Cinema, disponibiliza eventos e filmes muitas vezes já esquecidos por maior parte das audiências.
And the idea behind Dumpster Raccoon Cinema is like, it's like being a raccoon. So we're sort of foraging through the dumpster of popular culture and seeing like what treasures are in the garbage. So they're often very bad movies, but sometimes they're really great movies that were misunderstood in their moment. We put on these films, and I always try to cultivate an audience of again, it's all about building community for me. It's a very queer audience, very camp sort of events. Like we do costume contests, we do drag performances, we do live music performances. I am usually dressed like a clown of some kind.
O autor revela alguns dos projetos que irá lançar no futuro próximo, incluindo o seu primeiro livro já disponível, intitulado Dayspring.
I have a novel that will be out by the time this airs, I think. It's called Dayspring. It is a retelling of the Gospels from the point of view of the beloved disciple. It's the book I sat in the dark of the pandemic and wrote, thinking maybe the world is over. And so it comes from this kind of like, this desire to see something like community and something like love again in the world, in this sort of moment of almost pure apocalypse.
Anthony Oliveira confessa estar a trabalhar num livro que irá explorar as suas raízes portuguesas, a sua cultura e a sua fé.
There's a book I want to write that is sort of about my heritage and about Portugal. Something is always receding in Portuguese culture. My parents, as immigrants, are sort of steeped in this, right? They are from a world that's sort of across the sea, but they're also from a world that's like across time. Like their version doesn't exist anymore. It's not there. You can't go back to it. I'm interested in Portuguese culture's fascination with mourning and fascination with loss. Because I am also a person who's sort of consumed by themes of nostalgia and sort of a sense of like the danger of like what happens if the past lingers too long. So yeah, I do think I think eventually I have to do that project, and I'm scared to death of it because there's so many ways it could go wrong. But